What if a forgotten discovery from 1954 wasn't just an old man's delusion after all? For 70 years, everyone laughed at Otis Marsh's wild claims about what he found in the dried-up creek. Now his granddaughter has discovered his hidden journal. And, suddenly, mysterious black cars are watching her house. Some secrets were buried for a reason, some truths weren't meant to be found, and some stories are more dangerous when they turn out to be true. Penny Marsh clutched her backpack straps as she walked down the squeaky hallway of Pinewood Nursing Home. The place smelled like cleaning, supplies, and old people, but Penny didn't mind. Not when she was going to see Grandpa Otis. "Hi, Miss Penny," called out Nurse Jenny from behind the front desk. "Your grandpa's been asking about you all morning." Penny smiled and waved. Unlike her friends at school who complained about visiting their grandparents, Penny looked forward to these Tuesday afternoons. Grandpa Otis told the best stories. Room 214 had a door covered with family photos. Penny knocked twice before pushing. "It opened!" "There's my favorite explorer," Grandpa Otis called from his armchair by the window. His voice was scratchy but warm, like an old record player. His hands shook a little as he motioned for Penny to come closer. Penny dropped her backpack and gave him a gentle hug, careful not to bump the oxygen tube in his nose. "Hi, Grandpa. I got an A on my math test." "Smart as a whip, just like your grandmother," he said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Did you bring it?" Penny pulled out her test paper with a red A circled at the top. Grandpa Otis studied it like it was a map to buried treasure, nodding with each correct answer. "You know," he said, handing it back, "when I was your age, I wasn't much for book learning. I was too busy exploring every inch of this town." Penny settled into the chair beside him. This was her favorite part, when Grandpa Otis would drift back in time and take her with him. "Tell me a story I haven't heard before," she said. Grandpa Otis's eyes twinkled. "Did I ever tell you about how this whole town thought I lost my marbles back in 1954? Penny shook her head, leaning forward. "I was just 25 then," he began, looking past her to something only he could see. "Your grandmother, Betty, and I had been married just 6 months. I worked at the lumber mill, and every day after work, I'd walk along Copperhead Creek to get home." "Is that the creek behind the park?" Penny asked. "The very same, though it was wilder then. That summer was the worst. Drought anyone could remember. The creek dried up completely in some spots." Grandpa Otis paused to take a sip of water. His hand trembled slightly as he set the cup down. "One evening in July, I was walking home when I noticed something strange in the dry creek bed. Something shiny, catching the sunset. I climbed down to take a look." His voice dropped to a whisper, and Penny had to lean closer to hear. "What I found there, buried in that mud, shouldn't have been possible." "What was it?" Penny asked, her eyes wide. Before he could answer, a laugh came from the doorway. Penny's mom stood there with a small laundry basket. "Oh, Dad, are you telling that creek story again?" She set the basket down and kissed the top of Grandpa's head. "Don't get him all worked up, Penny. You know how he gets with his stories." "It's not just a story," Grandpa Otis insisted, his cheeks flushing. "I know what I found." Mom rolled her eyes like Penny sometimes did when her little brother was being annoying. "I brought you some clean pajamas. Dinner's at 5, don't forget." After Mom left, Grandpa Otis sighed. "That's what I've gotten for 70 years. Eye rolls and laughter." "What did you find in the creek, Grandpa?" Penny asked. "I'll show you something I've never shown your mother," he said. "Close the door." Penny did as she was told. When she turned around, Grandpa Otis was reaching beneath his bed, pulling out an old metal box, the kind that might hold fishing tackle. "This," he said, setting it on his lap, "is my proof. I've kept it all these years, but nobody ever wanted to look." The box was dented on one corner and spotted with rust. Grandpa ran his fingers over the lid like it was made of gold. "After I found it, I ran into town, straight to Sheriff Parker's office. Told him everyone needed to see what was in that creek bed. Next day, half the town followed me there." Penny could picture it. Her grandfather, younger than her dad was now, leading a crowd to the dry creek. "When I showed them, you know what happened?" Grandpa's voice cracked. "They laughed, called me a liar and an attention seeker, said I planted it there myself." "But what was it?" Penny asked again. "Mayor Kent said it was just old farm equipment washed downstream. Doc Miller suggested maybe I'd been in the sun too long." Grandpa's eyes grew watery. "Your grandmother was the only one who believed me. After that, I was Crazy Otis around town. Kids would follow me making spaceship noises. The newspaper ran a cartoon of me wearing a tin-foil hat." Penny felt her stomach twist. Kids at school could be mean, but to have a whole town laugh at you, she couldn't imagine. "For years, I tried to get experts to look at what I found. Wrote letters to universities and museums. Nobody ever came." He tapped the metal box. "So I kept the evidence, hoping someday someone would listen." Penny reached for the box. "Can I see inside?" Grandpa Otis nodded slowly and began to lift the lid. "This is my proof that—" A sharp knock interrupted them. Nurse Jenny poked her head in. "Sorry to interrupt, but it's time for Mr. Marsh's medication. And, Penny, your mom's waiting in the car." Grandpa Otis quickly slid the box back under his bed. "Next time," he promised. Penny gathered her backpack, buzzing with curiosity. "I'll come back tomorrow after school." As she walked out, she heard Nurse Jenny say, "Now, Mr. Marsh, you're not getting all worked up with those stories again, are you? Your daughter said to keep you calm." In the car, Mom was texting on her phone. "Did you have a good visit? Grandpa was going to show me something important," Penny said. "Something about what he found in the creek." Mom sighed, starting the car. "That story. Ever since I was little, it's been that story. Dad found some junk in a creek bed and convinced himself it was something special. But what if it was?" Penny asked. "Honey, Grandpa's always loved tall tales. That's why everyone called him Crazy Otis for years." Mom pulled onto the main road. "It used to embarrass me so much as a kid." As they drove past the park, Penny looked toward where Copperhead Creek would be, hidden behind the trees. What could Grandpa Otis have found that made everyone laugh at him for 70 years? And what was in that metal box he kept hidden all this time? She had to find out. Penny could hardly sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Grandpa Otis's metal box. What could be inside that was so important he'd kept it hidden for 70 years? At breakfast, she pushed her cereal around the bowl while her little brother Toby talked non-stop about his science project. "Mo-om, Penny's not listening," Toby whined. "Huh?" Penny looked up. "Sorry." Mom gave her a curious look. "You okay, sweetie? You've been quiet since yesterday." "I was just thinking about Grandpa's story." Dad lowered his coffee mug. "The creek story again. That old chestnut." "But he never finished telling me what he found," Penny said. "Probably rusty farm parts," Dad said with a chuckle. "Your grandpa always did have a big imagination." Penny frowned. Even her parents didn't believe him. No wonder Grandpa Otis kept that box hidden. At school, Penny couldn't focus on her lessons. During math, she doodled pictures of creek beds with X marks showing buried treasure. In science, she barely noticed when Mr. Foster announced their next assignment. "Listen up, everyone. Ms. Reed said after lunch, clapping her hands for attention. "It's time to start our history projects." The class groaned. Every year, fifth graders had to research something from Millbrook's past and make a presentation. This year's theme is Hidden Histories, Ms. Reed continued. "I want you to find a story from our town that most people don't know about." Penny's hand shot up so fast it startled the boy sitting next to her. Ms. Reed smiled. "Yes, Penny?" "Can we research a story that people think isn't true?" Penny asked. "That's a fascinating angle," Ms. Reed said, "as long as you can show evidence for your research." Evidence! The metal box. Penny could hardly wait for school to end. When the final bell rang, Penny raced to her bike instead of the bus. Mom wouldn't be expecting her home for an hour. That gave her time to visit Grandpa Otis. Pinewood Nursing Home. A different nurse was at the desk. "I'm here to see Otis Marsh," Penny said, trying to sound grown up. "Room 214, the nurse said without looking up from her computer. "But he's been tired today, so don't stay too long." Penny's excitement faded when she saw Grandpa Otis. He looked smaller somehow, propped up in bed instead of sitting in his usual chair. His eyes were closed. She was about to leave when he spoke. "Is that my explorer?" "Grandpa, I thought you were sleeping." "Just resting my eyes." He smiled weakly. "Didn't expect to see you today." Penny pulled a chair close to his bed. "We're doing history projects at school. I want to do mine on what you found in the creek." Something flickered in his tired eyes. "You believe me?" "Of course I do," Penny said, surprised by the question. "Why wouldn't I?" Grandpa Otis reached for her hand, his felt papery and cool. "Your grandmother always said that too." "Why wouldn't I believe you, Otis? She was the only one who never laughed." He pointed to the closet. "The box is on the top shelf now. Nurse Jenny almost found it under the bed yesterday." Penny retrieved the metal box and placed it on his lap. Her heart beat faster as he ran his fingers over the rusty latches. "July 14th, 1954, he said softly. "Hottest day of the year. The creek was bone-dry in spots. I was taking a shortcut home from the mill when something caught my eye." He opened the box. Inside was an old leather journal with cracked binding, yellowed photographs, and something wrapped in faded cloth. "The creek bed had cracked open from the heat," he continued, "and there it was, buried in the clay. At first, I thought it was just metal scraps, but when I dug deeper..." He carefully unwrapped the cloth, revealing a piece of metal about the size of Penny's hand. It had a strange bluish-silver color and was etched with tiny patterns that reminded Penny of circuit boards in her dad's old computer. "This isn't like any metal I've ever seen," Grandpa Otis whispered. "Too light. Won't rust. And look!" He pointed to the markings. "These aren't in English or any language I know." Penny stared at the metal piece. It didn't look like farm equipment or any machine part she'd ever seen. "When I brought the sheriff and mayor to see, I'd only found this one piece," Grandpa explained. "They said it was junk that washed downstream from the Harrison farm. But Harrison never had machinery like this." He opened the journal next. Inside were detailed drawings of the metal piece, plus maps of the creek and notes in cramped handwriting. "I went back every day that summer, searching for more," he said. "The drought ended in August. Once the creek filled up again, I couldn't dig anymore." Penny flipped through the journal pages. Some showed drawings of more metal pieces, different shapes, but with similar markings. "Did you find these other pieces too?" she asked. Grandpa Otis shook his head. "Those are just how I imagined the missing pieces might look. Whatever this was part of, it wasn't complete." He handed her a stack of photographs. They showed a younger version of her grandfather standing in a dry creek bed, pointing at something in the ground. Another showed him holding the metal piece, looking proud. Betty took these with her Brownie camera, he explained. Thought if I had proof, people might believe me. But they still didn't, Penny asked. People see what they expect to see, he said. And nobody expected to find something. Not from around here, in Copperhead Creek. Penny looked up sharply. Not from around here? You mean like, not from America? Grandpa Otis lowered his voice. I mean, not from anywhere people knew about in 1954? A chill ran through Penny despite the warm room. Can I borrow the journal? She asked. For my project? Grandpa hesitated, then nodded. Your grandmother would like that you're taking an interest. Just be careful. Some folks in town still get funny about that summer. What about the metal piece? Penny asked. That stays with me, he said firmly. Been calling it my proof for 70 years. Not letting it out of my sight now. As Penny tucked the journal into her backpack, Grandpa Otis gripped her arm with surprising strength. People will laugh at you too, he warned. Just like they laughed at me. I don't care, Penny said. If you found something important, people should know. Grandpa Otis smiled, tears in his eyes. You remind me of Betty, stubborn as an old mule. On her way out, Penny heard Nurse Jenny talking to the doctor in hushed tones. Not doing well this week, the doctor was saying. Might want to have the family visit soon. Penny clutched the journal tighter. She wasn't just doing this for a school project anymore. She had to solve this mystery while Grandpa Otis could still see the truth come out. As she biked home, the journal safely in her backpack, she couldn't help glancing toward the park where Copperhead Creek flowed. What secrets had been buried there for all these years? And why was everyone so quick to laugh at her grandfather's story? That night, after her parents went to bed, Penny sat cross-legged on her bedroom floor with Grandpa Otis's journal open, in front of her. Her desk lamp cast a warm circle of light around her as she carefully turned the fragile yellow pages. Some of the handwriting was hard to read, and Grandpa Otis used big words Penny didn't know. She kept her dictionary nearby, looking up words like anomalous and extraterrestrial that appeared throughout his notes. The first entries were dated July 14, 1954, found unusual metal object embedded in clay layer approximately 4 feet below normal creek bed. Cannot identify the material or purpose. Betty suggests bringing Sheriff Parker to see the site. We'll do so tomorrow. July 15th. Sheriff brought Mayor Kent and Doc Miller to the creek. They were unimpressed. Mayor suggested it was part of Harvey, Harrison's tractor that washed downstream during spring floods. This is impossible as the object was buried under layers of clay, not sitting on top of the creek bed. Penny flipped through more pages. Grandpa Otis had made detailed drawings of the creek, marking exactly where he found the metal piece. He'd also sketched the strange markings on the metal from different angles. An entry from July 20th caught her eye, went back to the site alone, dug deeper, and found impressions in the clay where I believe other pieces once rested. Whatever this was, it's not complete. The remaining pieces were either removed long ago or washed away by the creek over time. The material continues to puzzle me. It's lightweight, like aluminum, but much stronger. I tried cutting it with my shop tools. Nothing makes a mark, not even my hacksaw. The next page showed sketches of what Grandpa Otis thought the complete object might have looked like if all the pieces were together. Something round with curved sections that seemed to fit together. Penny was so absorbed in reading that she jumped when her alarm clock showed 11:30 p.m. She needed to get some sleep before school tomorrow. She tucked the journal under her pillow, her mind racing with questions. If Grandpa was right, what exactly had he found? And if it wasn't farm equipment, what was it? At school the next day, Penny could barely focus on her lessons. During lunch, she found a quiet corner of the cafeteria and pulled out the journal. Again. "What's that old book?" Penny looked up to see her best friend Zach sliding into the seat across from her. His red hair stuck up in all directions like usual, and his glasses were smudged. "It's my grandfather's journal," Penny said. "From 1954. "Whoa, that's ancient," Zach said, reaching for it. Penny hesitated, then pushed it toward him. "It's for my history project, but you have to promise not to laugh." "Why would I laugh at an old journal?" Zach asked, carefully opening it. "Because everyone laughed at my grandpa when he tried to tell them what he found." Penny explained about Grandpa Otis's discovery in Copperhead Creek, and how the town had called him Crazy Otis for years afterward. Zach studied the drawings with growing interest. "These markings don't look like normal machine parts," he said. "My dad collects old farm equipment. None of it has stuff like this on it." "You believe it might be something weird?" Penny asked, surprised. "I'm not saying it's aliens or anything," Zach said, pushing his glasses up. "But this is actually kind of cool. Have you shown Ms. Reed yet?" Penny shook her head. "I want to do more research first. Your mom works at the museum, right? Do you think she'd know anything about strange objects found around here?" "Probably not," Zach said. "But there's a visiting historian doing research there this month. Mom says she's writing a book about forgotten local histories or something." The bell rang, ending lunch. As they gathered their things, Zach added, "I could ask my mom to introduce you if you want." "That would be amazing," Penny said. "Maybe a real historian will take Grandpa Otis seriously." That afternoon, Penny decided to make photocopies of the most important pages in the journal. She didn't want to risk losing Grandpa's original if something happened. The copy shop near her house was empty, except for an older man behind the counter. "Can I help you?" he asked, as Penny approached with the journal. "I need to copy some pages from this old book," she said. "It's for a school project." The man adjusted his glasses as he looked at the open journal. "That's some pretty detailed, technical drawing for a school project," he commented. "It's my grandfather's journal," Penny explained. "He found something strange in Copperhead Creek back in 1954. The man froze. "Copperhead Creek? In '54? He peered at Penny more closely. "You're not Otis Marsh's granddaughter, are you?" Penny nodded, surprised. "You know my grandfather?" Everyone who grew up in Millbrook knows about Otis and his creek story. The man shook his head. "I was just a kid then, but I remember how folks talked." "Did you believe him?" Penny asked. The man hesitated. "Let's just say I never thought Otis Marsh was crazy. Name's Gerald, by the way. Gerald Fletcher." As he copied the pages, Gerald told Penny how he remembered that summer. The drought, the rumors about what Otis found, and the men in dark suits who came to town shortly after. "Men in suits?" Penny asked. "Grandpa never mentioned that in his journal." "Government types," Gerald said quietly. "Spent a day at the creek, then left. Mayor said they were checking water quality because of the drought, but they seemed more interested in what Otis had found." Penny tucked this new information away as she biked home with her freshly copied pages. Was there more to this story than even Grandpa Otis had written down? As she turned onto her street, Penny noticed an unfamiliar car parked near her house, a black sedan with tinted windows. A woman sat inside, writing in a notebook. When she saw Penny looking, she quickly started the car and drove away. That evening, Penny spread the journal and her copies across her bedroom floor, looking for any mention of men in suits or government officials. She found only one brief note from late July. 3 men visited the creek today. They claimed to be from the State Water Board, but asked more questions about my discovery than the drought. They took photographs and soil samples from where I found the object. When I asked for their names, they gave only last names: Smith, Jones, and Brown. Betty says those sound made up. Penny read the entry twice. Why would government people use fake names? And why would they care about an old piece of metal in a creek bed? She was so deep in thought that she nearly missed her phone buzzing with a text from Zach. Mom says you can meet Dr. Watkins at museum tomorrow after school. She's super interested in your grandpa's story. Penny texted back immediately, "Awesome! See you there at 3:30. She closed the journal, feeling a surge of hope. Tomorrow, a real historian would see Grandpa's evidence. Maybe, finally, someone would take his story seriously. Outside her window, the same black sedan drove slowly past her house. Penny woke early the next morning, too excited about meeting the historian to sleep. The black sedan was gone from her street, but she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. At breakfast, she casually asked, "Dad, did Grandpa Otis ever mention government people coming to see the thing he found in the creek?" Dad looked up from his newspaper. "Government people? No, but there was always some new twist to that story." He shook his head. Poor Dad. That creek business followed him his whole life. But what if he really found something important? Penny pushed. Mom sighed as she packed Toby's lunch. "Honey, your grandfather is a wonderful man with a big imagination. It's sweet that you're interested in his stories, but don't get too caught up in them." "I'm not making this into my history project," Penny announced. Her parents exchanged looks. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Mom asked carefully. "The other kids might..." "Might what?" Penny challenged. "Well, they might react the same way people did to your grandfather," Dad said gently. "You mean they'll laugh at me too?" Penny stuffed her journal copies into her backpack. "I don't care. Grandpa deserves someone to take his story seriously." At Oifi High School, Penny counted the minutes until the final bell. As promised, Zach met her outside when classes ended. "Ready to meet a real historian?" he asked, as they walked toward the Millbrook Museum. The museum was a small brick building that used to be the town's first library. Most of the displays showed farm tools, old photographs, and uniforms from both World Wars. Penny had been there on field trips, but never with a purpose like today's. Mrs. Wilson, Zach's mom, greeted them at the front desk. "There's my favorite, researchers," she said with a warm smile. "Dr. Watkins is in the archive room. She's very excited to meet you, Penny." She led them through a door marked Staff Only, and down a short hallway to a room filled with metal shelves. At a table in the center sat a woman with curly gray hair and bright red glasses, surrounded by stacks of papers. "Dr. Watkins?" Mrs. Wilson called. "The students I mentioned are here." The woman looked up and broke into a wide smile. "The young lady with the mysterious creek discovery. Come in, come in." Dr. Eliza Watkins didn't look like the boring historians in Penny's textbooks. Her colorful scarf was covered in stars, and she wore mismatched earrings, one a sun, one a moon. Her energy filled the small room as she cleared space at the table. "Zachary's mother tells me your grandfather found something unusual in Copperhead Creek in 1954, she said. "I've been researching forgotten local histories for my new book, and this sounds fascinating." Penny carefully placed her photocopied journal pages and the original journal on the table. "This is my grandfather's record of what he found," she explained. "Everyone thought he made it up, but he didn't." Dr. Watkins handled the journal with reverence, examining each page with growing interest. "These drawings are remarkably detailed," she murmured. "And these markings? She traced Grandpa Otis's sketches of the strange symbols. Very unusual. Do you know what they are? Penny asked hopefully. Not immediately. No, Dr. Watkins admitted. But they remind me of other symbols I've come across in my research. So, you don't think Grandpa was making it up? Penny held her breath. Dr. Watkins looked up, her expression serious. Penny, in my 30 years as a historian, I've learned that sometimes the stories dismissed as tall tales or local legends actually contain important truths that people weren't ready to understand. She turned to a page showing Grandpa Otis's sketch of the metal piece. Your grandfather writes that the material couldn't be cut with normal tools. That's significant, and these measurements and observations are too precise to be fabricated. Hope bloomed in Penny's chest. My grandpa has the actual piece at the nursing home. I'd very much like to see it, Dr. Watkins said, and perhaps visit the site where he found it. We could go to Copperhead Creek tomorrow, Zach suggested. It's Saturday, so no school. Excellent idea, Dr. Watkins agreed. And perhaps we could visit your grandfather afterward. I have some specialized equipment that might help us learn more about this object. As they made plans, Penny told Dr. Watkins about the men in suits who visited that summer and the black sedan she'd seen outside her house. Dr. Watkins's expression grew thoughtful. Interesting. There are patterns in how certain discoveries were handled in the 1950s. The government took particular interest in unusual findings. You mean like flying saucers? Zach asked, eyes wide. I mean any discoveries that didn't fit the scientific understanding of the time, Dr. Watkins corrected. Gently, the Cold War era was marked by secrecy and control of information. She carefully photocopied the original journal pages Penny hadn't copied, then returned the journal. This is significant historical documentation, Penny. Your grandfather was right to preserve it so carefully. As they walked out of the museum, Penny felt lighter than she had in days. Finally, someone who didn't think her grandfather was crazy. Do you really think Grandpa found something important? She asked Dr. Watkins as they stood on the museum steps. I think your grandfather found something that people in 1954 weren't prepared to understand, Dr. Watkins replied. History is full of such cases. Discoveries that were dismissed because they challenged what people thought they knew about the world. Like when people didn't believe the Earth went around the sun, Zach offered. Exactly, Dr. Watkins nodded. Sometimes it takes years, or even decades, for the truth to be recognized. They agreed to meet at the park entrance near Copperhead Creek at 10 a.m. the next day. As Dr. Watkins walked to her car, a colorful hatchback covered in science bumper stickers, Penny noticed the black sedan parked across the street. Zach, she whispered, see that car? I think someone's been watching me. Zach squinted. The black one? My dad says all government cars are black like that. Why would government people care about my history project? Penny asked. Maybe they know your grandpa was right, Zach suggested, and they don't want anyone finding out. Before Penny could respond, the sedan pulled away from the curb and disappeared around a corner. That evening, Penny called the nursing home to tell Grandpa Otis about meeting Dr. Watkins. A real historian? His voice sounded stronger than it had in days. And she believes my story? She thinks you found something important, Penny confirmed. We're going to the creek tomorrow to look around, then coming to see you. Be careful, Penny, Grandpa warned. After I found that piece, strange things started happening. Men watching our house, phone calls with no one there. Did you ever find out who they were? Penny asked. Never did, he said. But your grandmother always said, truth has a way of rising to the surface, just like that metal piece in the creek. After hanging up, Penny went to her window, and looked out at the quiet street. No black sedan in sight. But something told her that tomorrow's creek visit would change everything. When she finally fell asleep, Penny dreamed of digging in Copperhead Creek, uncovering piece after piece of strange metal with glowing symbols. In her dream, the pieces floated up and assembled themselves in the air, forming a perfect circle that pulsed with blue light. She woke with a start when her alarm beeped. Today, they would visit the creek. And maybe, just maybe, they would find answers to the mystery that had followed her grandfather for 70 years. Outside, the first light of dawn revealed a foggy morning, and parked down the street, barely visible through the mist, was the black sedan. Penny watched from behind her curtains as the black sedan sat motionless in the morning fog. Who was inside? Why were they watching her house? She thought about telling her parents, but decided against it. They already thought she was getting too caught up in Grandpa's tall tale. By the time Penny finished breakfast, the car was gone. She packed her backpack with Grandpa's journal, a water bottle, and her phone. Before leaving, she left a note on the kitchen counter. Gone to the park with Zach. Back for lunch. Technically true, though not the whole story. The park entrance was busy with Saturday morning joggers and families heading to the playground. Zach was already waiting, a bright orange backpack slung over his shoulder. "I brought snacks," he announced, "and a metal detector my uncle gave me for Christmas." "A metal detector?" Penny was impressed. "That's perfect." "It's kind of old," Zach admitted, "but it still works." Dr. Watkins arrived a few minutes later, dressed in hiking boots and carrying equipment bags. "Good morning, young researchers," she called cheerfully. "Ready for some historical detective work?" She handed them each a small notebook. "Real historians always document everything," she explained. "Write down anything you observe, no matter how small it seems." They followed a paved walking path that curved alongside Copperhead Creek. The creek wasn't large, maybe 15 feet across at its widest, with clear water flowing over smooth rocks. "It's so different from Grandpa's pictures," Penny observed. "In 1954, he said it was completely dry in some spots." "Landscapes change over time," Dr. Watkins nodded, "both naturally and from human activity." She consulted photocopies of Grandpa's journal maps. According to his notes, the discovery site should be about a quarter-mile ahead, where the creek makes a sharp bend. As they walked, Dr. Watkins explained that she was particularly interested in forgotten local histories. "Official records often leave out the most fascinating stories," she said, "especially those that challenge conventional understanding." "Like UFO sightings?" Zach asked eagerly. "Sometimes," Dr. Watkins smiled. "But I'm more interested in how communities decide which stories to remember and which to dismiss." They reached a spot where the creek curved sharply around a cluster of large boulders. The water was shallow here, flowing gently over a rocky bottom. "This matches your grandfather's map," Dr. Watkins said, comparing the journal page to their surroundings. "He found the object right about," she pointed to a spot near the creek's edge. "There." Penny knelt by the water. "But it's not dried up now. We can't dig here." "True," Dr. Watkins agreed, "but we can examine the surrounding area for clues." She pulled equipment from her bags, a tablet with mapping software, a strange-looking metal detector much fancier than Zach's, and a camera with a long lens. "This scanner can detect metal objects buried up to 10 feet deep," she explained, turning on the tablet. "It creates a 3D image of what's below the surface." Zach's eyes widened. "That's so cool! Is that what archaeologists use?" "Among other tools," Dr. Watkins nodded. "I borrowed this from a colleague at the university." As Dr. Watkins began scanning the creek bank, Penny walked around the boulders, comparing them to Grandpa's sketches. One large rock caught her attention, flat on one side with a pointed top, like in his drawing. She ran her hand over its surface, feeling the cool stone beneath her fingers. Something wasn't right. The rock in Grandpa's journal had markings on it, but this one was smooth. "Dr. Watkins," she called, "I think something's wrong. This boulder should have markings on it according to Grandpa's journal, but I don't see any." Dr. Watkins joined her, examining the stone. "Interesting. Let me try something." She pulled a spray bottle from her bag and misted the rock surface with water. As the water trickled down, faint lines appeared, symbols similar to those on Grandpa's metal piece. "Weathering has worn them down," Dr. Watkins explained quickly, photographing the markings. "They're barely visible now, but they're definitely here." "So Grandpa wasn't making it up," Penny exclaimed. "These aren't natural formations," Dr. Watkins confirmed, tracing the symbols with her finger. "They were carved intentionally." "By who?" Zach asked, his voice dropping to a whisper. "That's the question, isn't it?" Dr. Watkins said. "These symbols don't match any known Native American carvings from this region." She pulled out her tablet again. "Let's scan the creek bed now." As the scanner worked, showing colorful images on the screen, a deep voice startled them. "Morning, folks. Doing some fishing?" A park ranger stood behind them, hands on his belt. His name tag read, Ranger Wilson. "Good morning, Ranger," Dr. Watkins said pleasantly. "Not fishing, just doing some historical research." The ranger eyed their equipment. "That's some fancy gear for history work." "I'm Dr. Eliza Watkins from Northeastern University," she explained, showing him a university ID card. "These students are helping me document local historical sites for a research project." "This spot has a history?" The ranger looked skeptical. "My grandfather found something important here in 1954, Penny said. "During the big drought." Something flickered in the ranger's eyes. "Drought of '54, huh? That's before my time." He looked at their equipment again. "Just make sure you don't disturb anything. No digging in the park without permits." "Of course not," Dr. Watkins assured him. "We're only observing and scanning." The ranger nodded and walked away, glancing back several times. "He seemed very interested in what we're doing," Dr. Watkins murmured once he was out of earshot. "Do you think he's with the black car people?" Zach whispered. "Let's continue our work," Dr. Watkins said, turning back to her scanner. "But quickly." The Q tablet beeped, showing a completed scan. Dr. Watkins studied the image, her expression growing excited. "Look at this," she said, turning the screen so Penny and Zach could see. The scan showed an irregular shape beneath the creek bed, about 6 feet below where they stood. "What is it?" Penny asked. "Something large and metallic," Dr. Watkins said. "And definitely not a natural formation. It's about 8 feet long and 4 feet wide." "Is it more of what Grandpa found?" Penny's heart raced. "Possibly. It's much larger than the piece he described." Dr. Watkins took more readings. "The composition appears similar based on these readings." She looked up at the surrounding trees. "We should go. That ranger is still watching us." Sure enough, Ranger Wilson stood on a path above the creek, pretending to check a trail sign while keeping an eye on them. They packed quickly and headed back toward the park entrance. As they walked, Dr. Watkins explained in a low voice, "The scanner detected something significant buried under that creek bed. Something that's been there a very long time." "Like what?" Zach asked. "A UFO?" "I'm not jumping to conclusions," Dr. Watkins said carefully. "But whatever your grandfather found was just a small piece of something much larger." When they reached the parking lot, The black sedan was parked near Dr. Watkins's colorful hatchback. "That's the car that's been following me," Penny whispered. Dr. Watkins nodded calmly. "Let me handle this." She walked straight to her car, ignoring the sedan. "Let's continue our discussion at Pinewood Nursing Home. I'm eager to see the actual artifact your grandfather preserved." As they drove away, Penny checked through the rear window. The black sedan pulled out after them. "They're following us," she said. "Yes, and now I'm very curious why," Dr. Watkins replied. "Whatever your grandfather found 70 years ago still matters to someone." At a stoplight, Dr. Watkins turned to Penny. "Your grandfather took a risk sharing his discovery, even when people laughed. That kind of courage is rare." The light changed, and as they drove toward Pinewood, Penny couldn't help wondering, what was buried beneath Copperhead Creek that was worth watching and following a 12-year-old girl? And why, after 70 years, was it still a secret? The black sedan stayed 3 cars behind them all the way to Pinewood Nursing Home. As they pulled into the parking lot, Dr. Watkins turned to Penny and Zach. "Let me carry the scanning equipment," she said quietly, "and act natural. Whoever's following us, we don't want to appear concerned." Inside, Nurse Jenny greeted them at the front desk. "Penny, your grandfather's been asking for you all morning. He's having a good day today." "This is Dr. Watkins," Penny explained. "She's a historian interested in Grandpa's creek discovery." Nurse Jenny's smile tightened slightly. "Just don't get him too excited, okay?" Dr. Morgan doesn't want his blood. Pressure spiking. They found Grandpa Otis sitting in his armchair by the window, looking more alert than he had in weeks. His face lit up when he saw Penny. "There's my explorer. And you've brought reinforcements." Penny introduced Dr. Watkins and Zach. "Dr. Watkins is a historian, Grandpa. She believes your story about the creek." Grandpa Otis studied Dr. Watkins with sharp eyes. "A real historian? Not like those university fellows who refused to even look at my evidence back in '56? I specialize in overlooked historical discoveries," Dr. Watkins said, pulling up a chair beside him. "And after seeing your journal and visiting Copperhead Creek today, I'm convinced you found something significant." "You went to the creek?" Grandpa Otis leaned forward. "It's changed since my day. Creeks never dried up like that summer again." "We found the boulder with the markings," Penny said excitedly. "They're faded but still there." Grandpa Otis's hands trembled as he reached for the metal box on his nightstand. "Those markings, they match these on my proof." He opened the box and carefully unwrapped the metal piece. In daylight streaming through the window, the strange bluish-silver material seemed to glow slightly. Dr. Watkins put on thin gloves before handling it. "May I?" she asked. Grandpa Otis nodded, watching closely as she examined it. "Extraordinary," she murmured, turning it over in her hands. "This isn't any alloy I recognize." She traced the etched markings. "And these symbols match those on the boulder exactly." She pulled a small device from her bag, like a handheld scanner with a digital display. "This measures composition without damaging the sample," she explained. "I'd like to get a reading of what this material actually is." The device beeped and flashed as she ran it over the metal piece. Dr. Watkins frowned at the results. "That can't be right," she muttered, trying again. "The elements this is detecting, some of them don't match any known metal on the periodic table." "Told you it wasn't from Harrison's tractor," Grandpa Otis said with a wry smile. Dr. Watkins carefully photographed the metal piece from all angles. "Mr. Marsh, our scan at the creek detected something large, still buried deep under the creek bed. Do you know if anyone else tried to excavate the site after your discovery?" Grandpa Otis shook his head. The drought ended in August. Creek filled right back up. By then, folks had labeled me the town crackpot. His expression darkened. Though, those government men spent a day poking around before the rains came? We think someone's been following us, Penny admitted. A black car. Grandpa Otis didn't seem surprised. Same as in '54. Black car, men in suits. Your grandmother used to say, "Otis, big secrets cast long shadows." Dr. Watkins's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her eyebrows shot up. "It's my colleague from the university, the one who loaned me the scanner." She stepped into the hallway to take the call. While she was gone, Grandpa Otis gripped Penny's hand. "Whatever's happening, be careful, child. Some truths come with risks," Dr. Watkins returned, looking troubled. "My colleague analyzed the image scans from the boulder markings. He says they don't match any known Native American or early settler carvings in this region." She hesitated. But he did find something strange. Similar symbols have been documented at 3 other sites across the country. All discovered in Fidaitib, the 1950s, all subsequently dismissed as hoaxes. Grandpa Otis let out a long breath. "So, I wasn't the only one?" "Not by a long shot," Dr. Watkins confirmed. "If these discoveries are connected—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. The implications hung in the air between them. As they prepared to leave, Grandpa Otis held onto the metal piece. "This stays with me," he said firmly. "It's my proof. Has been for 70 years. "Of course," Dr. Watkins assured him. "But May, I return tomorrow with better equipment? I'd like to do a more thorough analysis." Grandpa Otis nodded. Been waiting a lifetime for someone to take this seriously. Outside in the parking lot, the black sedan was nowhere to be seen. But as they got into Dr. Watkins's car, Penny spotted Ranger Wilson from the park, sitting in a pickup truck across the street. "Dr. Watkins," she whispered, "the ranger is watching us now." "Let's not go back to the museum," Dr. Watkins decided. "I'll drop you both at Penny's house instead." As they drove, Dr. Watkins explained her plans. "I'm going to send all our data to trusted colleagues at the university. The composition of that metal piece, the boulder symbols, the underground scan, it's all evidence that supports your grandfather's account." "Will anyone believe it?" Penny asked. "Science is about evidence, not belief," Dr. Watkins replied. "And we have compelling evidence that something highly unusual was buried beneath Copperhead Creek." At Penny's house, Dr. Watkins promised to call them the next day after visiting Grandpa Otis again. "I'll meet you at the library tomorrow afternoon. It'll be safer to talk there." After Dr. Watkins drove away, Penny and Zach sat on the front porch steps. "Do you think it's aliens?" Zach whispered. "I don't know," Penny admitted. "But whatever it is, people have been keeping it secret for a long time." The next day at school, Penny presented her project progress to the class. She shared Grandpa's journal and photos, but left out the part about government agents and mysterious metal. Some kids still laughed. "My dad says Crazy Otis found an old tractor part and made up stories about it," said Tyler from the back row. But Ms. Reed was fascinated. "This is exactly the kind of hidden history I was hoping students would discover," she said. "Excellent. Research, Penny." After school, Penny headed to the town library to meet Dr. Watkins and Zach. But when she arrived, Zach was waiting alone, looking worried. "Dr. Watkins never showed up at the museum this morning," he said. "Mom says she called to cancel their meeting. Then Mom found her office had been broken into last night." "Broken into? Was anything stolen?" "All her notes about your grandpa's discovery," Zach said, "and the copies of his journal." Penny's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your grandfather was right. People are still trying to hide the truth. When Penny and Zach tried to return to Copperhead Creek that afternoon, they found the entire area blocked off with yellow tape and environmental testing signs. The truth, it seemed, was being buried all over again. "This is crazy," Zach whispered, as they stared at the environmental testing signs blocking the path to Copperhead Creek. Yesterday, everything was fine, and now suddenly they're testing the environment? "It's not a coincidence," Penny said. "They're blocking access because of what we found." They watched as workers in yellow vests set up more barriers. A white van with Millbrook Water Authority on the side was parked nearby. "We should go," Penny said, tugging Zach's sleeve. "I don't want them to see us." As they walked away, Penny tried calling Dr. Watkins, but the call went straight to voicemail. The mysterious text message kept replaying in her mind. Your grandfather was right. People are still trying to hide the truth. We need to find more proof, Penny decided. If Dr. Watkins can't help us right now, we'll have to keep investigating ourselves. How? Zach asked. They took all the research. Penny thought for a moment. Not all of it. I still have Grandpa's original journal at home, and there might be other records we can check. What about old newspapers? The library has newspapers on microfilm, Zach said, brightening. My mom showed me once. They go back like 100 years. The Millbrook Public Library was a quiet two-story building with tall windows. The main room had computers and bookshelves, but Penny had never been to the research section in the basement. Mrs. Cooper, the elderly librarian, looked up as they approached the desk. Can I help you two? We're doing a history project, Penny explained. We need to look at old newspapers from 1954. Microfilm archives are downstairs, Mrs. Cooper said, leading them to a door behind her desk. Not many students use these anymore. What are you researching? Penny hesitated. Something that happened during the drought that summer. Mrs. Cooper punched a code into a keypad, and the door unlocked with a click. The drought of '54? That, hey, was before my time, but I've heard stories. Downstairs was a small room with 2 microfilm readers, machines that looked like computer screens with special viewers attached. Metal cabinets lined the walls, each drawer labeled by year. 1954 would be in Cabinet 3, Drawer 4, Mrs. Cooper showed them. Each film reel has about a month of daily papers. Just be careful handling them. They're irreplaceable. After showing them how to load the film and use the reader, Mrs. Cooper went back upstairs. Penny and Zach pulled the drawer for July-August 1954. Let's look for any stories about Grandpa's discovery, Penny said, carefully threading the first reel into the machine. Scanning through days of old news was harder than they expected. The Millbrook Gazette had been published 3 times a week, with each issue covering everything from international news to local church bake sales. This is going to take forever, Zach sighed after 30 minutes of searching. Wait! Look! Penny pointed at a small article on the back page of the July 18th edition. The headline read, Local Man Claims Strange Find in Dry Creek. The article was short, just a few paragraphs tucked between advertisements. Millbrook resident Otis Marsh, 25, caused a stir yesterday when he led several townspeople to Copperhead Creek to view what he described as unusual objects embedded in the dried creek bed. Sheriff Parker and Mayor Kent examined the site, but dismissed Marsh's claims as unfounded. It appears to be old farm equipment that washed downstream, Mayor Kent stated. Nothing remarkable or worthy of further investigation. Marsh insists the IBE objects are unlike anything made around here, and has requested outside experts examine his find. That's it? Zach looked disappointed. 3 paragraphs on the back page? They buried the story, Penny said. Just like they're trying to bury it now. They continued searching through August's papers and found nothing else about Grandpa's discovery. But on August 4th, a front-page article caught Penny's attention. Government officials visit Millbrook for water testing. The article explained that representatives from the Federal Water Commission had visited the town to conduct tests related to the ongoing drought. They had taken samples from various water sources, including Copperhead Creek. "Look at this quote," Penny said, pointing to a paragraph near the end. Mayor Kent expressed gratitude for the federal government's interest in our small town's water situation. "These gentlemen assured me their findings will help us prepare for future drought conditions," Kent stated. When asked about rumors that their visit was connected to Otis Marsh's claims about Copperhead Creek, both the mayor and federal officials declined comment. "So they did come. Because of Grandpa!" Penny exclaimed. As they continued searching, the library door opened. Mr. Finch, the older man from the copy shop, came down the stairs. "Thought I might find you two here," he said. "Mrs. Cooper mentioned you were researching the summer of '54. You said your father worked for the newspaper back then," Penny remembered. Mr. Finch nodded, looking around as if to make sure they were alone. "Dad was a photographer for the Gazette. He took pictures the day your grandfather brought folks to the creek." He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. "He also took pictures the paper never printed. The paper was an old photograph, yellowed with age. It showed men in dark suits examining the creek bed, where Grandpa Otis stood pointing at something in the ground. Dad kept copies of pictures the editor rejected," Mr. Finch explained in a low voice. "He always said there was more to that story than what got printed." "Why are you showing us this now?" Penny asked. "Saw you with that historian yesterday," Mr. Finch said. "Then heard her office got broken into last night. Same pattern as back then. Anyone who took your grandfather seriously faced complications." "Were you the one who texted me?" Penny asked. Mr. Finch looked confused. "Texted? No. But listen, whatever your grandfather found, powerful people wanted it kept quiet. Still do, seems like." He tapped the photograph. "Keep this. Maybe it'll help." After he left, Penny and Zach stared at the photograph. It clearly showed the metal piece partially embedded in the clay, surrounded by strange markings in the ground. "This is proof," Penny whispered. "Real proof that it wasn't just farm equipment." As they walked home, Penny's discovery felt both exciting and scary. People had been hiding this truth for 70 years, and now they knew she was looking for it. When Penny got home, her parents were arguing in the kitchen. They stopped abruptly when they saw her. "Where have you been?" Mom asked, her voice tight with worry. "We've been calling you." Penny checked her phone. 3 missed calls. "Sorry, I was at the library with Zach for my project." Dad and Mom exchanged looks. "Honey," Dad said carefully, "we got a call from Ms. Reed today. She's concerned about your history project." "Why?" She said it was excellent research. "She did," Mom nodded. "But she also said you might be getting too invested in Grandpa's story." "It's not just a story," Penny insisted. "I found proof. That's exactly what we're worried about," Dad interrupted. "Penny, your grandfather's creek discovery has been a difficult topic in this family for years." "Because nobody believed him," Penny said. "But I do. We think you should choose a different topic," Mom said firmly. "Something less controversial." "No." Penny surprised herself with how steady her voice sounded. "This is important." "Important enough to have strange people watching our house?" Dad asked. Mrs. Henderson across the street called to ask why there's been a black car parked on our street for 3 days. Penny's stomach twisted. They'd noticed, too. "Dr. Watkins believes Grandpa," she said. "She's a real historian." "The same Dr. Watkins whose office was broken into last night?" Mom challenged. "The police called here today, asking if we knew anything about it because your name was in her notes." "I didn't." "We know you didn't break in," Dad assured her. "But whatever's happening, it's getting out of hand." Penny wanted to explain everything. The metal piece with unknown elements, the symbols on the boulder, the underground object still buried in the creek. But she knew they wouldn't believe her any more than people had believed Grandpa Otis. "I'm going to visit Grandpa tomorrow," she said instead. "Dr. Watkins was supposed to meet him for more research." "That's fine," Mom sighed. "But this project is causing too much trouble. I want you to talk to Ms. Reed about changing topics on Monday." Penny nodded, not agreeing but not arguing either. In her room, she carefully placed Mr. Finch's photograph and Grandpa's journal in her backpack. Whatever happened, she wouldn't let this evidence disappear too. That night, she couldn't sleep. What if someone broke into their house looking for Grandpa's journal? What if Dr. Watkins was in danger? What if they were already too late, and whatever remained in Copperhead Creek would stay buried forever? Sunday morning, Penny woke to her phone buzzing with a text from Zach. "Did you see the paper? They're draining the creek next week for construction." Google Millbrook Creek renovation. Penny quickly searched online and found the article from the Millbrook Gazette website. City Council approves emergency creek drainage for infrastructure repair. Copperhead Creek will be drained beginning next Saturday for repairs to underground water pipes. The $1.2 million project was approved in an emergency session Friday evening. The timing couldn't be coincidence. Just days after they discovered something large buried under the creek, suddenly the town needed emergency repairs. Penny called Zach. "They're going to get to whatever's down there before we can." "What can we do?" Zach asked. "The whole area's blocked off." "We need to talk to Grandpa Otis," Penny decided, "and try to reach Dr. Watkins again." At the nursing home, Penny found Grandpa Otis in his room with the doctor. He looked pale, his oxygen tube back in place. "Just a bad night," he assured her. When the doctor left, "Nothing serious," but Nurse Jenny told a different story in the hallway. "He had breathing troubles all night. Dr. Morgan is concerned. His heart isn't as strong as it was." Penny sat beside Grandpa's bed, fighting back tears. "I found something, Grandpa. An old photo from the newspaper that never got printed. It shows..." "What you really found?" Grandpa Otis's eyes lit up as she showed him Mr. Finch's photograph. "Harold Finch took this," he whispered. "He was there that day." "His son gave it to me," Penny explained. "But Grandpa, they're going to drain the creek next week for construction. I think they're going after whatever's still buried there." Oh, shadow passed over Grandpa's face. After all these years, he looked at Penny with sudden urgency. "There's something I never told anyone, not even your grandmother." "What is it?" Grandpa Otis looked toward the door before continuing in a whisper. "I found more than just that one piece." Penny's eyes widened. "You did?" "The night before I brought the sheriff, I went back alone. Dug deeper. Found something else." His voice was barely audible. "I was scared they'd take everything, so I only showed them the first piece. The second part, the important part, I hid." "Where?" Penny leaned closer. "There's a map," Grandpa whispered, "hidden in the journal. Last page, under the binding." Penny pulled out the journal and carefully examined the back cover. The binding was loose, and when she gently pulled at it, a folded paper slipped out. A hand-drawn map of the creek, with an X marked in a different location than where they'd been searching. "That's where I buried it," Grandpa confirmed. "Upstream, under the big oak that split in two. Is the tree still there? Penny nodded, remembering the distinctive forked oak near the park entrance. No one would think to look there, Grandpa explained. Everyone focused on where I first showed them. What did you hide, Grandpa? His eyes gleamed. The piece that proves it wasn't from this earth. A loud knock interrupted them as Nurse Jenny entered with medication. When she left, Grandpa gripped Penny's hand with surprising strength. You need to find it before they drain the creek, he whispered. Before they take everything. Penny nodded, tucking the map safely away. I will, Grandpa. I promise. Outside, the nursing home, Penny tried calling Dr. Watkins again. This time, to her relief, the historian answered. Penny? I'm so sorry about yesterday. My phone was stolen along with my research. Are you okay? Penny asked. We were worried. I'm fine, but being very careful, Dr. Watkins said. Someone doesn't want us looking into your grandfather's discovery. Where are you now? Penny explained about the creek draining plans and the hidden map. This changes everything, Dr. Watkins said. If your grandfather hid a second artifact, we need to find it before the construction begins. Meet me tonight at 9 p.m. at the park entrance. Bring Zach if you can. And Penny, tell no one else about this. That evening, Penny told her parents she was going to bed early. Instead, she waited until they were watching TV downstairs, then slipped out her bedroom window. Zach was waiting at the corner with flashlights and a small shovel from his garage. This is definitely breaking the rules, he whispered nervously. I know, Penny admitted, but we're running out of time. At the park entrance, Dr. Watkins was waiting in her colorful car with the headlights off. Ready for some real archaeological field work? She asked, her eyes bright with excitement behind her red glasses. As they walked toward the creek with flashlights, carefully pointed at the ground, Penny felt a mix of fear and determination. Whatever Grandpa Otis had hidden 70 years ago, tonight they would finally bring it to light. Unless whoever had been watching them got there first. The park was eerily quiet at night. Moonlight filtered through tree branches, casting strange shadows across the path. Dr. Watkins led the way with her flashlight pointed at the ground, following the map from Grandpa's journal. The creek's up ahead, Zach whispered. But what about the environmental testing barriers? We'll have to go around them, Dr. Watkins replied softly. According to the map, we need to be further upstream anyway. They stayed off the main path, keeping to the tree line. In the distance, they could see reflective yellow tape around the section of the creek they'd visited before. But no one seemed to be guarding it. There's the split oak. Penny pointed to a massive tree ahead. Its trunk divided into two main sections about 6 feet up. It stood about 20 feet from the creek's edge. Dr. Watkins consulted the map again. Your grandfather was clever. This spot looks completely unrelated to his original discovery site. How deep do you think we'll have to dig? Zach asked, gripping his small shovel nervously. The map shows it's about 3 feet down, Penny said. Grandpa buried it in a metal container. Dr. Watkins pulled a compact folding shovel from her backpack. Let's get started. Penny, keep watch while Zach and I dig. Penny stood with her back to them, scanning the dark park for any sign of movement. The distant street lamps created pools of light near the entrance, but most of the park was in shadow. Behind her, she could hear the soft scrape of shovels against dirt. Dr. Watkins had brought a small tarp to place the excavated soil on, minimizing evidence of their digging. How's it going? Penny whispered after several minutes. Slower than I'd hoped, Dr. Watkins admitted. The ground is hard. Zach wiped sweat from his forehead despite the cool night air. Are we sure this is the exact spot? Penny checked the map again, shining her flashlight carefully on the paper. It should be right where you're digging. Look for roots extending from the oak. Grandpa marked it between two big roots. They continued digging. Penny's nerves grew with each passing minute. What if someone saw their flashlights? What if the park had security cameras? What if— Wait, Dr. Watkins said suddenly. I hit something. Penny turned to see Dr. Watkins on her knees, brushing dirt away from something in the hole. It was a metal box, similar to the one Grandpa kept his first piece in, but larger and more heavily rusted. Is that it? Zach asked, his voice cracking with excitement. I think so, Dr. Watkins said, carefully lifting the box. It's sealed tight. A twig snapped somewhere in the darkness, making all three of them freeze. Penny swung her flashlight toward the sound. A figure stepped out from behind a nearby tree. For a terrifying moment, Penny thought it might be a park ranger or security guard. Instead, it was a woman in a dark jacket, the same woman Penny had seen in the black sedan. Don't be alarmed, the woman said, holding up her hands. I'm not here to stop you. Dr. Watkins quickly positioned herself between the woman and the children. Who are you? Agent Mercer, Historical Artifacts Division. The woman showed a badge that glinted in the moonlight. I've been monitoring your investigation. You've been following us, Penny accused. In the black car. Agent Mercer nodded. Yes, but not for the reason you think. I'm not here to confiscate anything or shut down your investigation. Then why follow us? Dr. Watkins asked, still suspiciously clutching the box. Because sites like this have been on our watch list for decades, Agent Mercer explained. When you started scanning the creek bed, it triggered our protocols. What protocols? Zach asked. In the 1950s, several unusual artifacts were discovered across the country, Agent Mercer said, all with similar characteristics to what Otis Marsh found. All of them were classified. By the government? Penny asked. Agent Mercer nodded. At the time, it was deemed necessary. The Cold War was at its height. Anything unusual was considered potential Soviet technology or propaganda. She gestured to the box. But times have changed. Many of those old files were scheduled for declassification review this year. Your grandfather's discovery among them. Then why not just tell us? Dr. Watkins demanded. Why the surveillance? Standard procedure while the review is pending, Agent Mercer said. I'm not supposed to interfere at all. But when I realized you were about to find the second artifact, she gestured to the hole. I couldn't just watch from a distance. Penny wasn't sure whether to believe her. How do we know you won't just take it away like they did in 1954? Because I'm here to help you dig, not to stop you, Agent Mercer said, pulling out her own small shovel. And because I believe your grandfather deserves to know the truth before it's too late. Penny and Dr. Watkins exchanged looks. How do you know about Grandpa's health? Penny asked. We've been monitoring his condition, Agent Mercer admitted. When declassification was approved, we planned to interview him as the original finder, but his health started declining rapidly. There was something in Agent Mercer's voice that sounded genuine to Penny. After a moment, Dr. Watkins nodded, and they continued digging together, clearing the area around the box. When they finally pulled it free from the earth, all four of them gathered around as Dr. Watkins carefully opened the rusted latches. Inside, wrapped in oil-soaked cloth that had preserved it from moisture, was an object unlike anything Penny had ever seen. About the size of a dinner plate, it had the same bluish-silver color as Grandpa's piece, but this object was clearly more significant. Its surface was covered with the same strange symbols, but arranged in concentric circles. At its center was a depression that seemed designed to hold something else. It's a receiver, Agent Mercer whispered, awe in her voice. Just like the others. Others? Dr. Watkins asked sharply. Similar objects have been found at the other sites I mentioned, Agent Mercer explained. Together, they form parts of a larger device. We believe they're components of something that was buried thousands of years ago across multiple locations. Penny stared at the object, its surface seeming to glow faintly in the moonlight. What does it do? That's what we still don't know, Agent Mercer admitted. But your grandfather's piece, the smaller one he kept, it fits into this one. It's a key component. As they carefully repacked the artifact in fresh cloth, Penny felt a strange mix of triumph and unease. Grandpa Otis had been right all along. But what exactly had he found? And why had it been buried in pieces across the country? We need to show this to my grandfather, Penny said firmly. Tonight. Agent Mercer hesitated, then nodded. I'll help you transport it safely. It's time Otis Marsh got the recognition he deserves. As they made their way back through the dark park, the mysterious object securely wrapped in Agent Mercer's backpack, Penny couldn't help wondering what other secrets might still be buried. Not just in Copperhead Creek, but across the world. Dee Hu, night nurse at Pinewood, was surprised to see visitors so late, but Agent Mercer flashed her badge, explaining it was official business of historical significance. That, plus Dr. Watkins's university credentials, got them hurried through to Grandpa Otis's room. Penny's heart sank when she saw her grandfather. He looked smaller somehow, oxygen tubes in his nose, monitors beeping softly beside his bed. But his eyes brightened when he saw her. "My explorer returns," he whispered. "We found it, Grandpa," Penny said, sitting gently on the edge of his bed. "Right where you buried it, under the split oak." For a moment, Grandpa Otis looked confused. Then, understanding dawned in his tired eyes. "You found the receiver?" Agent Mercer carefully placed her backpack on the bedside table and unwrapped the artifact. The bluish-silver metal seemed to glow under the room's fluorescent lights, the strange symbols standing out in sharp relief. "After 70 years," Grandpa Otis breathed, his trembling hand reaching out to touch the object. "They said I was crazy, said I made it all up." "You were right all along, Mr. Marsh," Agent Mercer said. "And your discovery was more important than anyone realized in 1954. Grandpa Otis studied her with sharp eyes. "You're with them, the government men who came back then." Agent Mercer nodded. "A different department, but yes. In the 1950s, findings like yours were automatically classified. The Cold War made everyone paranoid. They told me to forget what I found," Grandpa recalled. "Threatened to have me committed if I kept talking about it." "That was wrong," Agent Mercer said. "And now we're working to correct those mistakes. Your discovery, along with the others, is being declassified." Grandpa Otis looked at the strange object, then at Penny. "You believed me when no one else would." "I never thought you were crazy," Penny said, holding his cool hand in hers. "And now everyone will know the truth." Grandpa Otis reached for the metal box beside his bed. "Let's see if I was right about this too." He opened the box and carefully removed the smaller metal piece he'd kept for 70 years. With shaking hands, he held it over the larger artifact, aligning it with the depression in the center. "Your grandmother always said, 'Truth and metal both surface eventually,'" he murmured. When he placed the piece into the center, it fit perfectly. For a breathless moment, nothing happened. Then, faint lines of light appeared along the symbols, pulsing softly from the center outward. "It's activating," Agent Mercer whispered, her professional composure breaking. "Just like the others when their components were united." "What is it?" Zack asked, staring wide-eyed. We believe these devices were left as markers, Agent Mercer explained, or possibly as a communication system. The symbols match nothing in any known human language or writing system. Markers by whom? Dr. Watkins asked. Agent Mercer hesitated. That's still classified, I'm afraid. But what I can tell you is that similar devices have been found at precisely calculated locations across the globe, all buried thousands of years before human civilization, as we know it, existed. I knew it. Wasn't from around here, Grandpa Otis said with quiet satisfaction. Knew it, the moment I touched it. The light in the artifact pulsed stronger, casting a blue glow across the room. Outside in the hallway, a nurse called for assistance as equipment throughout the building began to flicker. We should disconnect it, Dr. Watkins suggested, before it affects the hospital systems. Grandpa Otis nodded, and Penny carefully separated the two pieces. The glowing stopped immediately. I have colleagues who specialize in these artifacts, Agent Mercer said. With your permission, Mr. Marsh, we'd like to transport both pieces to a research facility for proper study. After all these years of keeping it secret, Grandpa said, now you want my permission? Times have changed, Agent Mercer replied, and you're the rightful discoverer. Your name will be in the official record. Not just my name, Grandpa Otis said firmly. My granddaughter's too. She finished what I started. 2 weeks later, Penny stood beside Grandpa Otis's wheelchair in the Millbrook Museum. A special exhibit had been set up, featuring photographs, Grandpa's journal, and detailed explanations of his 1954 discovery. In the center, behind secure glass, sat replicas of the two artifacts. The originals had indeed gone to a government research facility. The mayor, a much younger man than the one who had laughed at Grandpa 70 years ago, was making a speech. Today, we correct a historical injustice, he announced to the crowd of townspeople and reporters. Otis Marsh's discovery, long dismissed, has now been confirmed by historical experts as one of the most significant archaeological finds of the 20th century. Penny squeezed her grandfather's shoulder as reporters took pictures. The front page of the Millbrook Gazette, displayed prominently in the exhibit, carried the headline, Local Hero Vindicated. Otis Marsh's 1954 discovery confirmed. After the ceremony, as people lined up to shake Grandpa's hand and apologize for decades of disbelief, Dr. Watkins pulled Penny aside. Your grandfather's discovery has changed our understanding of history, she said. The markings on those artifacts match symbols found at sites around the world, all precisely placed, all of unknown origin. What does it mean? Penny asked. Point means someone, or something, left these devices in specific locations thousands of years ago, Dr. Watkins replied. The bigger question is why. As visitors crowded around the exhibit, Grandpa Otis beckoned Penny closer. There's one thing I never told anyone, he whispered. Not even your grandmother. Penny leaned down to hear his words. The night I found the first piece, he said, his voice barely audible. I saw lights above the creek. Lights no plane in 1954 could have made. But after how everyone reacted to the pieces I found, I knew better than to mention the lights. He squeezed her hand. Some truths take time, he said, as visitors lined up to shake his hand. Sometimes you have to wait for the world to be ready. Looking around at the crowded museum, at reporters taking pictures of the artifacts that had once been dismissed as junk, at her parents who now looked at Grandpa with new respect, Penny realized the greatest discovery wasn't what had been buried in the creek. It was the courage to stand by the truth when everyone laughed, and the patience to wait until they finally listened. That's the end of our story. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Where are you listening from? I'd love to know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this tale, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support gives me the motivation to create more stories like this one.